Hello, this is the fifth video in the AutoIt Scripting tutorial video set, and what I'm going to be covering this time is something called operators. And an operator is a way of doing mathematical calculations or adding something onto the end of what it already is, or adding something to what it already is. So here I have a new file I've created. I've already declared 4 different variables, and here I have a little example I've put together. First variable equals 100. Very standard things we've already seen. The second variable equals 150, and the third variable equals first variable plus second variable. So it's 100 plus 150, basically speaking. But we're using the variable names to do the math. So we're just saying third equals first plus second. So here I have a message box that will show us this result. So if I press F5, you'll see that the answer is 250, which is what you get when you add these two together. Now, you can do the same thing with the other sides of the mathematics. I can go second, second minus first. So now this is going to take whatever's here and subtract this from it. Second minus first. Hit F5 and we can see the answer is now 50. Because it takes 150, takes 100 away, and we've got 50 as a result. Now, if you want to do multiplication, you use the asterisk, or as it's also known, the star symbol, and that will multiply. So now we're saying we want to take the second variable and multiply it by the first. So now if I hit F5, because remember this is going to show whatever is in this third variable, now we see the answer. So that's how you do multiplication. And to do division, or to divide something, you use the forward slash. So now we can do the same thing, hit F5, and now we see this result. And it's an easy way to, there's an easy way to remember these symbols, because on most keyboards there is a separate area on the right hand side called the numeric keypad. And it's a separate area where you can see all the numbers, and there's another enter button there and some arrow keys usually, and you will also see there's a plus, a minus, an asterisk and a forward slash. So those will jog your memory to remind you that they are the ones that you use for doing mathematics in scripting languages and programming languages. Now we have here a fourth variable that I've specified 1, 2, 3. Now, with this third one, you can see that I'm specifying what it is going to be. Like I'm saying that third equals the second one divided by the first one. But what if I want to take a variable and add something to what it already has? Like fourth already has 123. What would happen if I wanted to add 100 to what it already is, not just assign it? Because if I go 100 and hit F5, it just is 100 because I've just assigned it a new value. So whatever it was has been wiped out now. So what I could do is I could go, because right here I've already specified that fourth variable equals 123. So what I could do is I could go fourth equals fourth plus 100. So now, let's do that for neatness. If I hit F5 now to run it, we can see that it's 223 instead of 123, because I've said I want fourth to equal what fourth already is right now plus 100. Okay, so it's been able to generate the correct answer. there is a shorter way, kind of a shorthand way of doing this right here. Instead of saying fourth equals fourth plus 100, what we can do is go fourth plus equals. Now, because I wanted to add something to what it already is, that lets you know that we're using the plus. And the way we can add something to what it already is we add an equals there. So if I go fourth plus equals 100 and hit F5, it does the exact same thing as having fourth equals fourth plus 100. So we haven't got to do that anymore, we can go plus equals. The same thing we can do with minus equals. I could take 123 minus equals 100, and it will take 100 away from what this figure or this variable already has in it. So now when I press F5, the answer is 23. Same thing with multiplication. I can go take whatever's in fourth, multiply equals or asterisk equals 100, and it will times whatever this already is by 100. So now I press F5, now we get 12,300. And as you may have guessed, you can do the same thing with division. So I press F5 on there, and now we get the result. So that's how you do the math side of things, how you can add things, subtract things, multiply and divide, and how you can, in a very quick, easy and short way, do those kinds of things with whatever was already in the variable. So now you know that fourth plus equals 100 will just add 100 to whatever it already was. So it's a very quick way of doing it. Now here's another thing. Let's declare a new one. Fifth. Oh. Fifth equals testing. Alright, so now when I press F5, I can see, as I've shown you in a previous video, that now we have what was inside this variable here. And as you may recall, if you want to connect things or glue things together, you use the ampersand or the and symbol, and then you can add anything to it afterwards, like a string or another variable. So now when I press F5, I can see testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, pretty standard stuff that we've already covered. Now, the other way of doing this is, now I've already assigned testing to fifth. I can use the same principle as this to be able to add something or glue something onto the end of what is already in that variable. So I can say here fifth, and if you recall, in order to glue something on the end, use the ampersand or the and symbol. So what I can do is I can go and equals 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now fifth is going to say testing 1, 2, 3, just the same as I already did. The only difference is I did and equals with the and symbol. So I've got fifth and equals 1, 2, 3. And as you may recall, when I told you before, you don't have to put numbers in quotes. You can do, but you really don't need to. So if I remove the quotes here and press F5, it'll still do the exact same thing, okay? Because the quotes aren't really necessary. But this is how you, the fact that this right here is a plus equals, that's a mathematical addition. With the and equals, that's like gluing something onto the end of what was already in it, which is why when I hit F5, it says testing 1, 2, 3 all in one go like this, because I've said fifth and equals 1, 2, 3. So whatever's already in fifth, add 1, 2, 3 onto the end. So that hopefully should give you a good understanding of this basic side, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly add to this, and I'm going to, if you recall, we recently did conditional if-then statements. So I'm going to do an if-then, which will show you another aspect of some operators. So I'm going to go if second, and here I'm doing a smaller than sign. If second is smaller than first, then message box. So I'm going to do a basic message box with an OK button with 0 as the title and 0 as the message. Okay, so now if I hit F5, we see our message box here, but we didn't see one here. Why is that? Because the second value is actually bigger than the first. Look, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. That's down here. Title, title, fifth, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. So if I change this to a greater than, because actually second is greater in value than the first. Now if I press F5, now I see my simple 0, 0 text box, message box. So I can press OK, and then it gets to here. So the way you can remember this is that the way the angle is, you can fit a lot of things into this angle right here, whereas this is kind of like to a point. It's like a tiny, tiny, tiny point. So in this case right here, we're saying that this is really small. This is smaller than this, because this arrow here, you could like turn that on its side and you could fit a lot of things inside this gap right here. So this is smaller than this, and we use the other side. This is bigger than this, or greater than this right here, because this is on the side with the wide open area that can fit a lot in. So that's how you can remember that. So that's how you do greater and smaller than with your conditional statements, which can be very useful. And something else you can do is this, which in order to do this you do smaller than, greater than. And what that means is if second doesn't equal first, okay, what that's meaning is the exact opposite of this. If second equals first, which it doesn't, so when I press F5 it just does our last message box, it's the exact opposite. We're saying if it doesn't equal. So if second doesn't equal or is not the same as first, then do this. So now of course we see this message box because second is 150, first is 100. So second isn't the same as first because they're two different numbers. So that's why it comes ahead and does this message box before it does this one. So that is how you can do smaller than versus greater than, and with your equals, if this is the same as this, or you can say if it doesn't equal. Now what I'm also going to add is we can go if this is smaller than or equal to. So if the second value is smaller or is the same as the first, then bring the message box up, which obviously that's not going to work because the second one is bigger. So if I change this to the other side, if second is greater than or is the same, i.e. it equals first, if we run that, now we see the message box, because this right here is specifying that if the second is greater than or equal to. If I just had greater than and those values were the same, it wouldn't work. one would have to be bigger. The first one would have to be technically bigger than the first in order for it to work. If it was the exact same, it would not work. So I could say if it equals, or if it's greater than, or I could say if it's greater than or equal in the same time. So that gives you a lot of leeway to be able to work with something, to say, well, if it's this or higher, then do this, or if it's this or lower, then do this. Whereas otherwise it would be if it's lower than this. Okay? So it gives you a lot to work with in terms of mathematics and being able to add things on. And you will be using things like this with what I'm going to show you in the next video, because the next video is going to be covering something called loops, which is a way to continue something on an ongoing basis until a certain thing happens that will break that loop. So we will get to that. But the last thing that I'm going to show you is a variation of equals. Just before we go, I'm going to say second equals hello. First equals hello. Okay? Let me get rid of this. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm saying if the second is the same as the first, then bring a message box up. Okay, so we've got hello and hello. So if I press F5, it brings up and says a message box saying is the same. Well, it isn't the same technically speaking if you look. Even though they both say hello, one of them has a capital H and one of them has a small or lowercase h. Because equals is actually case in specific. It doesn't pay attention to if there's something that's a capital, uppercase, lowercase. It doesn't care, as long as the words, for example, or the numbers are the same. That's all it really cares about. If you wanted it to be case specific, meaning that it will be able to look at whether it's an uppercase or a lowercase or a capital or not, you use two equals together. So what this means is if this second variable is the exact same and the same case as well as the first, then bring the message box up. So now if I hit F5, it doesn't bring it up because this one has a capital H and this one doesn't. Whereas now if I change this one to a capital H and now press F5, now it comes up, because this double equals here is letting this line know that the second one is the exact same, including the case, as the first. So that's why you see the message box. Okay, so that was the 5th video. I shall see you on the 6th video in the series.